This podcast series is brought to you by World of Coffee Dubai and DXB Live. Expand your specialty coffee brand into the fastest growing specialty coffee market in the world by becoming an exhibitor at the next World of Coffee Dubai in 2024. I will be there, so head to worldofcoffeedubai.com and join the mailing list to get notified when booth registrations become available. Check the show notes for further details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. Today on the podcast, joining me is Nawar Adra. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and we are here for episode 3 of a 4-part series. We're talking about what we learnt in the Middle East about the future of the coffee industry. And we have spoken about the industry itself over there. We've talked about the cafes. Today, we're going to talk about the consumer. So, Nawar, the coffee consumer over in the Middle East, particularly in Dubai, as we witnessed, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which are two different emirates of the United Arab Emirates. What surprised you about the consumer over there?
In different one or just
whatever you
overall?
like. Overall.
Okay. I think the consumer overall is it's a consumer that is willing to try something new. You know, a consumer willing to adapt to a new way of doing things. A consumer with an open-minded concept. They might not continue trying a new product, but at least they give it a go.
They're open,
You know what
right?
I mean?
They're more open.
Yeah.
Our consumers are habitual. Our consumers get an oat latte every morning, and they're going to get an oat latte for the rest of their life. They
100%.
maybe will dabble by getting chocolate on top.
Yeah. Over there is you've got something new? What do you have?
Yep.
You know? Also that make a problem because they're interest spam and stuff. Yeah. I recently got an offer list from a coffee roaster.
Okay. Here or
Jesus.
there?
No, over there.
Okay.
The amount of single origin they
I know.
were offering is ridiculous to but tells you that their consumers are happy to give it a go. If you say recommendation or anything like that, they're just gonna go ahead and do it. And I'm not talking about me going to a cafe, tell them what's on pour over, you know. I'm talking about somebody who doesn't have that understanding of all the coffee aspects and still willing to go ahead and say, wow, this is really nice. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, this smells amazing. Do you know
We're
what I
not
mean?
talking about a specialty coffee connoisseur. We're talking about your average consumer is that curious. But I have a question for you as a coffee roaster. Is that sustainable from a supply chain perspective? What's the relationship to sustainability as a business model, not necessarily as like a green thing?
Okay, I think is not.
Tell me why.
You know, so if you are just wholesaling and selling coffee, no way on earth you can answer that much or you can do that much. It's just too risky and too much of a headache, to be honest, to be good in all of them. Right. But if you have retailing, it's okay. Do you know what I mean?
So when we talk about that, you mentioned in an earlier episode about blends, and we've talked to friends of ours over there who have said that like there are certain markets where the consumer is, or the cafes themselves blends are not accepted over there. Do you think that there's a way to position blends over there that the consumer does become that they are approachable for consumers?
Definitely there is. The thing is you have to bring it back to the market with a little bit of a different ideology or concept behind it, or a different why we decided to do it. I mean, recently look at all the world coffee brewers, they're all blending suddenly because one coffee, it doesn't give you, you know, a very complicated or complex, sorry, not complicated, but complex cup, like two coffees comes together. there is a shift in that. So that could be entering the filter first. So tell them, by having a really high-end blend, that doesn't mean the quality is bad. And matter of
Right.
fact, we giving it a much more flavor that is gonna impact your taste buds.
Right.
And I was talking to somebody this weekend, and it's very interesting because there was a really good thing he said that we all know each cup that you're going to receive is a unique cup. You will never replicate it in some cases, right?
Mm.
Because there's so many freaking compound and volatile flavors in a cup. A grinder might not grind. You got small beans, big beans. It depends what goes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's such a big um concept of just picking up watermelon, or
Right.
like watermelon might show in this cup, the next cup could be different melon.
Right.
So it's very unique, each cup. They're not the same, right? Now sometimes blends can help to little bit, sometimes consistency, they could be part of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
you know um and blends also means that it will give you a certain flavor profile that is going to give you that uniqueness
And more
that you
depth
are
than what you
striving for.
right. And more
100%.
depth than you're going to get from just a single origin. I wonder if we relate that back to the consumer. I wonder if we're able then to help progress the palate of the consumer, sort of the opposite way than how it was in our industry, because everything started as blends and then we had to do the work as baristas to
To
convince
make it
consumers to start drinking singles, right? I feel
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
the reverse over there.
over there, yeah, yeah, 100%. And I'm pretty sure they are willing to give it a try as long as you execute it really, really well. I think the execution will be very, very important. How you're gonna communicate this to the public over there,
And
and yeah,
well, I'm just wondering if any industry is going to be able to do it, they'll be able to do it because they're so unified. Well, much more unified than what I guess we are here in Australia or what we are in America. Once the industry decides to do something, it catches fire and just starts happening over there.
mm. It goes like, again, the word trend is not a good thing, but it goes wild,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, and it stays longer, I believe,
Okay.
even if it's trending for a bit, if it does really, really well, like, again, you build the consumers who are willing to continue purchasing
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. The fact that I've seen so many pour overs on table, and we're
It's all
talking
we ordered.
across, yeah, like, it was across the whole table, so it wasn't just one wants something, the other person. It was very fascinating. Like, the
Mm.
consumer are open to go ahead and to experience something completely different.
Do you think that the consumer over there is more educated or are they more curious? Because the reason I ask that is because I didn't see, like, for example, you go to Stitch Coffee, your cafe, you go to Stitch Coffee and there are information cards, there is multiple touch points in the cafe and on the website to learn about the supply chain and the producer and the packaging and all of that kind of stuff, right? I didn't really notice much education for the consumer over there. Did you notice any or maybe I just
No,
didn't
there
see it.
was that, and no, no. I think this is where the missing piece, right? This is where the service and experience is still not there yet, right?
Except the consumers still
Yes,
buying. And
that
that's the part that I'm confused about with regards to the
I,
industry. Maybe
I think
they've got it right.
the consumer is curious. That's all.
Okay.
They're willing to, because they're a coffee drinking culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not a beer drinking culture. They're not a wine drinking culture. So coffee is their wine. The
It's their pub.
coffee is the pub, exactly. Coffee is their thing that has to replace another beverage,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when coffee became um, the flavor compounds that today we are experiencing it really taken by surprise because all of them go overseas, study overseas. When they come back, they are actually educated overseas. A lot of the new
Mm-hmm.
millennial, the young generation, already
Mm-hmm.
went in and experienced coffee culture either in Australia and America, in other country.
Mm-hmm.
So when they are back, they are already knowing what they want to get, you know. And I think that is contributing. So a bit of a curiosity and a little bit of overseas education.
Mm.
I think. Now what they're missing is you're getting, the thing is what happened in all these expensive coffee shops is you're getting one type of like, either the overseas expats or the super locals, so the Emiratis,
Mm.
right? They're not really diversifying into the other part, or baristas who just finished their job elsewhere and going to visit their friend or going to check out a
Yeah,
new
there's
cafe.
there's a whole market that they're not tapping into.
Yeah, which is, the other market that that who needs education.
So do you want to elaborate a little bit on who you mean?
I mean the more of the working class.
Mm-hmm. Well put.
That doesn't mean they don't work, but it's like, a different type of work they do,
Right.
and I think that market is so big that we could capture them, I guess, if we had a bit more education
Mm-hmm.
about it as well.
And maybe a little make it a little more approachable because a lot of these venues feel super fancy.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
So
Like it's really uh, it's sometimes, if there was no friendly stuff, you wouldn't walk in. I
right.
mean, at least you had a bit of a friendly people behind the bar
Mm-hmm.
that helping you. But for us, we were there because we just wanted to experience everything, right? But I believe there is an opportunity there because what we've saw is Tim Horton, the
Pete's Coffee.
Starbucks, the Gloria Jeans, the coffee clubs. These are the working class go-to spaces,
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a little bit more education, a little bit of that, then they could come up to the level of, hey, I want to go and spend a good amount of money to have a good coffee.
Yeah. And as like Mauricio said on the podcast when he was on the podcast at World of Coffee, he mentioned that like in places like Saudi, and we witnessed it in Dubai as well, people go for coffee at midnight.
Mm.
Like it's a normal thing to meet at a cafe at midnight and have coffee with your friends and grab cake and do all that kind of thing. That's just the way that it is over there. Whereas like here or in America, you'd go to a bar or a pub or something like that. So I guess even for the working class, if they wanted to go on like a special outing, accessing specialty coffee shops, like the top end specialty coffee shops, which is like all of them, that becomes something that they know about, but they don't have the barrier into that.
Mm.
And so I think what you're saying is that we need to create the gateway for them to want to start making their way up to specialty coffee through places like the perhaps the more middle or lower end specialty coffee shops that could be made available. Before we wrap up
Yeah.
this episode, what do you think we could learn in the West from their consumers? What do you think that we could implement here that we learned over there to captivate more of the consumer?
Very, very good question. It does require a lot of thought process, but I think what we can learn from them that we can apply here. I think what we can learn the mostly is the way they are establishing coffee at a different layer of beverages.
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So not just one thing and neglecting the other, it's trying to tell them that we've got all range of brew methods. Each brew method does something different than the other,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have a lot of coffee focus as well. So when
Mm-hmm.
you ask their people, they can tell you more about coffee. So they have, they can answer you, which is good.
This was the big thing that I found over there, is that they cultivate curiosity in the consumer through the employees. We found, and we'll talk about the workforce in the next episode, but something that we found is that the hospitality was out of control good.
Mm.
And because the hospitality was they couldn't do enough for you in the cafes. And when they were being hospitable, they used that opportunity to cultivate curiosity in the consumer. And I don't see that happen enough over here or in the States.
I think it depends where you go, but yes, on an overall
Right.
stage, yes.
Yeah. At Stitch, that's something that that I always observe. But I think that's why you're so successful, is because you're constantly using that customer engagement to cultivate curiosity. As well, you do that through your mailing list. Like, there's so many layers of the way that you guys are cultivating curiosity in your consumer. And I think that for me was the big takeaway, is that they use their workforce to build the relationship. And it's a pleasure to be engaged with that way by staff because they're genuine about it.
Yeah, I mean, they tried their best to
Yeah.
show that they know what they're talking about, so.
Yep. So in the next episode, we are going to talk about a concept that is fucking wild. There's no other way to describe what we're going to talk about in the next episode other than to say it's fucking wild. So tune in, folks. I promise you this will not disappoint as we talk about the workforce over there. So peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day, folks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.